Yes, we are. Ladies and gentlemen, hello, how you doing? My name is Ilian Marshak, and I want to welcome here Ronny Edry. Ronny, say hello.
Hello, Ilian.
How you
Hello.
doing? You doing good? Oh,
I'm
look,
doing-
you need to go a little bit to your right. No.
Jesus
Yeah.
Christ.
Like this. Your computer is your computer?
This is me.
Yeah, that's yours.
This is mine.
How you doing?
I'm doing fine. How you doing?
I'm doing pretty well, so I would like to present the things that we're going to do here today. So I want to welcome you to our first show in English. We're live here from Tel Aviv, from Jaffa, and this show will be called the Sandbox because we're in quite sandboxed here in Israel. It's in the center of the Middle East, and
It's the box.
it's the box, it's Sandbox. So we're going to talk about world current affairs with some Middle Eastern
Everything,
accent.
but with an accent.
With an accent.
French accent for
And
me.
this is actually a first time that we do that. We thought we should do that for the public in English, for the outside public in English, but let's see that everything is working okay. Okay, sounds good, looks good. I hope that the folks out there can hear us pretty well. Okay. So this thing is all of this is going to be in English, and it's going to be kind of a freestyle, talking about politics, about wars, about, I don't know, COVID, about all of these things that we usually talk about amongst ourselves, yet instead of doing it in Hebrew / in Russian or in French, we just really thought to bring the Middle Easterns
Because we're doing it every week in Hebrew. We're doing it in Hebrew, and we were thinking, okay, why not let the rest of the world enjoying it?
Yeah,
right?
So
why not?
Why not? Yeah, I mean, only 10 million Hebrew-speaking people around the
15
world.
million.
15? No, I think it's 10.
15 million Jewish people around the world.
No, the Jewish circumcised is not the point. It's, I mean, also the Muslims are being
The
circumcised.
Hebrew speakers,
it doesn't mean that they speak
we
Hebrew.
have a very narrow
Public.
Yeah, public when we're talking only with Hebrew speakers. So we decide, let's do it worldwide. Let's go big.
On the emphasis of the Middle Eastern accent. We have to emphasize that because we're not really from America, we're not really from the United States, and even my accent that you hear
really
now,
not.
it's just being picked up from any other TV shows that anyone have ever seen somewhere. So yeah, I picked up a lot of different ways of saying things in English, and some of them will sound as if I'm from Texas, some of them will sound as if I'm from New York, and some of them will sound as if I am Russian, because actually I was born in Belarus, in Minsk, which is now, it's
Russia.
It's not Russia, but it's in the news, while for the past 40 or 50 or 90 years, Belarus never was in
Nobody knew there was a country called Belarus.
None.
Where is this?
None. So the whole point of this show is to actually tell all other folks outside of Israel about our point of view
Of what's happening.
in English of what's happening here and also around the world. Because again, we do have quite unique perspective here in Israel, because Israel is consisted of many, many different countries and entities and cultures that throughout the years came here, such as Ronny. He's actually French-Moroccan, and I am Sovieto, I don't know, I'm just Soviet, without any other half parts. And
you're also a long year podcaster.
Yeah, I do
Right.
that.
I mean,
You're
doing a lot
I'm quite seasoned.
of journalism online.
Civil
journalism.
Yeah, of course.
So that's why we were thinking maybe, okay, it's time, after so many years of talking in Hebrew, it's time to switch to English.
It is.
Even with my bad English. I'm from France originally. And so my English is
better than many French people that we know, that's for sure.
It's in the 90s in France, we were forced to learn English
during like night school.
At school, yeah.
Yeah, okay.
But it was like we never picked up real English.
Evening lessons.
So we had it at school.
You picked it up quite good,
But the first time I actually start speaking and understanding English, it was when I came to Israel, because the difference, I don't know if you know that, but in France, everything is dubbed in French. So if you see a series, let's say, from the 80s, for my years, let's say Starsky and Hutch, Dallas, Dynasty.
Yeah.
Okay, everybody would speak French. And
when it's dubbed.
Yeah, you want.
Yeah. It's like in Russian, by the way. It's the same thing.
You don't know. In Russian, it's more aggressive because it's one person.
Like and it's also in Russian.
It's one person doing
all the voices.
All the voices.
Almost. Yeah.
So in French, it's more subtle. We have, for every actor, we have a French actor. But so we didn't know any English, and the first time I actually started to speak English was when I came to Israel, and I have no other choice to understand what's happening on TV. You have to. You
know why? Because in Israel, unlike if you're so you go to America or England or whatever, and people speak English over there, and okay, everyone are English speaking. Here, not everyone are English speaking. Many of them are, but not like many are also not. So you have to know some kind of language other than French,
But the young generation now speak perfect English. My daughter, she's 15. She's speaking a better English than mine because of Netflix. Because of Netflix.
Yeah. I mean this generation. It's this.
She's watching this series
because of the smartphones,
and that's it. And she have an excellent English. That's the best teacher.
So one thing that actually important to emphasize is the fact that also in Israel we have 1.5 million ex-Soviet, ex-USSR residents that came from there to here, Jewish mainly, most of them, not all of them, most of them. Doesn't really matter to me, but I'm just saying. So 1.5 million
people
out of 9 million here in Israel right now, 9.3 million the population here in Israel. So, I mean, it's a lot of people, and many of them, if you go to the streets, just trying to buy something, just stop it somewhere, you'll hear Russian-speaking people.
So Israel is a very diverse.
And now that Putin, Vladimir Putin is occupying Ukraine, which he doesn't like it. He likes it when people say...
It's liberating.
It's a special military operation.
It's a liberation.
It's an operation, military denazifying the Ukraine.
It's operating.
So we have kind of a unique also position, political, geographical, and cultural in Israel regarding the war that goes on right now on
but before you jump in,
the eastern side of Europe.
Before you're jumping in...
I'm just saying one of the added values why we do it in English.
I would like to add, for you to add few more words about yourself. How old are you? Who are you?
Because it's the first show.
Again,
it's okay. Yeah.
The public, it's the first time they're hearing us, and I guess
time. Most of them actually,
the English speakers.
Yeah, I think that the English speakers right now, most of them, not like 100% of them, I think they do know who I am. But for the public outside in English is going to hear and listen to our show, hopefully for the future. The Sandbox. It's an interesting first show. So I'm 37. I was born again in Belarus, Minsk, which is the northern country to Ukraine right now, to people who are tuning in to the current events of the war. So Belarus is really, really more Russian than anything, but yet again, it's a sovereign country. So I was born in '84, and we had some Chernobyl going on there, and on April 26th, Saturday, 1986. I was 2 minutes old, so to speak, again, but my mother and all the surrounding people, we thought about how can we just, run away from that place because it's just too much of a mess. And then really we found ourselves and many other Jews and again non-Jews, people who just were running away from the collapsing Soviet Union. And many people maybe don't know or forgot that even prior to the collapse of the Soviet Union in 1991, all the years,
before
coming up to this event, it was like standing in line for food, for the basic needs. and you had like really on one hand the government, pushing on you surveillance and political, like all of these commissars and all of these people and like the regime, the KGB and people like that. And on the other hand, you have people who are really, for the first time in their lives, they see the mass, wealth of the West.
Of the West, yeah.
Yeah, the music, the food, the clothing, the style, the fashion, the TV, the rock and roll music, all these things. So they started to infiltrate little by little into the Russian culture, Soviet culture. So really, like my mother and her generation, they really wanted to just leave this dark Iron Curtain, and they flee to many places, and in a way, and again, so we turned out here because I'm a Jew and we are Jews, so we turned out in Israel. It's just easy, I guess. It's not because we had any like religious Jewish inclinations or anything. It's just
it was easy just, to emigrate.
Yeah,
because
it was just easier. We knew that here we were gonna get some basic,
So maybe we can clarify also this for the people who are hearing us for the first time. I mean, in Israel, we have a basic immigration law that allow you, no matter where you are from, anywhere in the world, you can, if you're Jewish, you're welcome. You actually can come to Israel and immigrate to Israel. It's legal. Just knock on the door and say, I'm from the Jewish people.
Yes. So, yeah, it's true. So then you get right away at the airport, you get all your certificates, passport, you get your ID card, you get everything. Mm-hmm. And also you get, for a short period of time of, say, 6 months, a small, say, I don't know, $1,000 allowance, yeah. some kind of, I mean, could be even $1,500. And also you get, when I got here, we had an absorption center. So you have like a campus of buildings that are designated for these newcomers. And me and my mother used to live, which is consisted of one bedroom. And you have a small kitchen, which is like really just for students. Like if it's something that if you were a student, like a freshman somewhere, I mean, I don't know how is it over the United States and other places like that, but like in Israel, if you're a student and you get something modest, so you'll get one bedroom and with some, it's not even a kitchen, it's just like a sink with some place next to it to prepare yourself some sandwich, something like that. So me and my mother, she was 26, I was 6. We came here, not far from Tel Aviv, and it was quite nice, harmful. It wasn't like in growing up in the Soviet Union where anything could happen to you.
It was better than...
It was better, yeah. I mean, it was difficult, the whole absorption part, because people tend not to accept, the different person or the different culture that being just absorbed into the old one. So Israelis, while being consisted of mainly... the diaspora, the Jewish diaspora, so to speak, so like from all around the world, they don't quite know how to accept newcomers. I mean, if you're a tourist,
which is funny, because it's a country based and built on newcomers, on immigration, and each new wave is treated like it's the first time people are immigrating to Israel.
Like they're, like they're outcasted, like they're not welcome. I mean,
so jump to how you come to...
The Moroccan, we just have to remind people, it's not only the Russians in 1990 or 1984 or 74. It's the Jewish Ethiopians, it's the Jewish Yemenites, Jewish Moroccans, Jewish French Moroccans, I mean, Iraqi, Jewish Syrians, and also from Iran. Many Jews from Iran fled there, came here.
Second community of Iranian outside of
Israel,
of Iran,
of Iran
in the Middle East. The biggest community outside of Iran is actually in Israel.
Yeah, and also the vice versa. I mean, the biggest Jewish Irani community outside of Israel is in Iran.
In the Middle East.
In the Middle East, yeah.
Obviously, in Los Angeles, you have more Iranians and Jewish
Yeah, and in
altogether.
Canada too, I guess, more Iranians than anything.
Okay, so finish the presentation. How you come to be this podcaster?
Okay. So, after we've been absorbed here, we kind of realized that getting work and getting your social ranking in order to get really well, being paid well, getting good jobs and stuff. That was the hard work, and it's an ever-ending. It doesn't end. There's no end to it. You always work more hard, and 2 times harder for less money because you're a newcomer, so to speak. Because you're just being, towed from other country in a way. And so really we worked, me and my mother, really hard in order to get accepted into the Israeli really Zionistic, so to speak, nationalistic environment, even if they're not religious, but they're really patriots, So I look like an Arab. We have to put it on the table, straightforward.
You look Persian. You have to
I don't
know
look
that.
Russian. I don't look Russian.
You look Persian.
Okay, Persian, Arab, not the friendly side.
Difference.
Small
difference.
To the Jewish, Israeli, local, Ashkenazi,
if I had to guess,
white folks, I don't look like friend.
Yeah.
I look like foe. So to me, it was even harder to being accepted, and there's no even really acceptance, for people who darker skinned than the Soviets.
Yeah, you're always different.
So even the Soviets didn't realize that I'm a Soviet when they look at me. They're like, "Oh, okay, Moroccan." No. I
Iraqi?
Iraqi, Iraqi. No, I'm actually,
So finish the presentation because it's gonna take us too much time.
One thing led to another. The situation, economical situation, family situation. Not only me, but many other families who came here. We kind of didn't move anywhere socially, economically speaking. And 2011. We had civil unrest here in Israel, also around the world. You call it an Arab Spring, you can call it Occupy movement, the same thing that you had in New York.
So that's how you started.
So I was one of these, folks that looked around, and I realized after 20 years of hard work on being accepted and not moving anywhere, I realized that this stalemate, that not me not moving anywhere, it's not because of me being stupid or a lack of abilities. It's just because of the economical way or method or whatever you want to call it. It works like this, okay? It works in a way that actually favors a very specific layer of society and not all the others.
And so since then, that's what you do?
Yeah, I started with the phone, with smartphone, and I started to do live streams from protests, and also narrating the protests in a way that because the quality of the video, because anyone who have ever done it, he knows that the quality sometimes varies. So because of that, I had to speak in order to compensate on the lack of any good video.
Bad video.
Yeah, of just because of the bad video, I had to speak and talk a lot. So
that's
what I'm doing still for the past 12 years now, almost. Yeah. And me and you met.
Okay, great.
In this way, me and you met. In one of these events, one of these events and protests.
We actually met in 2011, I guess, few times, and from that time till now, our paths have crossed.
Yeah, more than a few times.
More than a few times, and we actually decided to join forces a few months ago and start doing this kind of show, which is nice.
Which is it's a radio style show. We have it in Hebrew. We do it in Hebrew every Thursday between 3 and 5, GMT +2. If anyone is interested.
He's cursing, and I'm holding him on.
So sometimes when it's in Hebrew, because it's a lot for me, it's a lot easier to feel free, to just spiel and just talk freely. So sometimes I do introduce a lot of cursing and F words. But again, in Israel, unlike in Russian, for example, it's quite okay to curse. I
like it.
Also in English in a way, but in Russian, if you say any F word or anything close to F word, it's considered for you to be so rude that people would just they just won't listen, and it doesn't matter how much you write.
I got that many times.
There is a really fine, there is a fine line between saying something because you pissed and just being that cursing, F-word guy. And in Hebrew, again, I'm the one who's with an F-word guy. So.
Okay, so I'll try to.
It's nice you asking me questions.
Okay, so I'll try to
doesn't happen
to
usually.
do the same.
Yeah.
A short presentation. I'll try to
Please
make it.
do, Ronny. So
short.
you're.
So I'm 51.
Okay, you're not
Jesus
a spring
Christ.
chicken anymore.
I'm 51, and so I was born in the 70s. In 70, actually.
Damn.
Yeah, man. I'm old.
Staying alive.
Yeah. I mean, Samantha Fox and I mean, that's my age. So I was actually born in Israel, but to a volunteer who came from France. My mother, she was a volunteer. She came at the end of the 60s. Because it was the land of the free, and it was like, a big kumbaya here all the time.
Yeah.
She met in a kibbutz. We'll talk about what is a kibbutz later. But in a kibbutz, she met my father.
Yeah.
They had me, and then she understand what was happening here in Israel, and she said, I want to go back home.
She said she wants to go back home?
Less than a year, she said, okay, Paris, I want back home. And so... I won't get into
what
details.
What took us so long? I mean.
But so I grew up in France, and when I was 18, I decided to make what we called an aliyah, to come back in Israel. Mm-hmm. Why? It's a long story, and I won't get into it. But
as you said, the first reason is because Israel accepts any Jew around the world,
but,
questions asked.
I could have stayed in France, and I decided to try it. It was like something good was happening here, and so I came to Israel. And after a year that I was in Israel, I went to the army, which for a French young person, for anybody, it's a very stressing and strange thing happening to you. Here in Israel, the army, obviously, is you have to do 3 years for boys and 2 years for girls. So I went for 3 years, and I wanted to be a pilot. Mm-hmm. But they didn't want me to be a pilot. Mm-hmm. So the closest things was to be a paratrooper, because you're in a plane.
It's either you fly, either you go down. So he said, if I can't fly, I can at least go down from planes.
So I was 3 years in the paratroopers, and that makes you understand a lot of things about yourself and obviously about Israel, because suddenly you're meeting the people, you're into the conflict. I was in the first intifada, second intifada, I was a lot of time in Lebanon, Hezbollah, all this shit. We'll talk about it, but that were my first years in Israel were in the army, and it was like a boom.
It's a cultural shock.
It's a shock for anyone, even for people living in Israel and growing up in Israel. So imagine coming from the States, France, wherever. And
though
suddenly,
French Legion, Foreign Legion, France is one of the most prolific countries when it comes to army and weaponizing and mechanizing and training people for army and for war.
We're not that bad either.
Yeah.
So after that, I went to learn to learn at Bezalel. So it was a completely different world, and it's an art school.
Yeah.
So I learned graphic design, and today I'm a teacher in graphic design. So I'm teaching graphic design at the academies here in Tel Aviv.
He designed, by the way, the poster
that's
where
my design.
We should show it. Yeah. Let's see.
Yeah.
Let's see. Oh, here it is.
Okay.
Yeah, he designed it.
I did that today.
It's better than me. I designed something totally different.
It's okay. It's a few.
It's better for us not even to show it.
So that's what I'm doing. And you may have heard of me because of the project Israel Loves Iran, which went viral a few years ago.
All around the world.
And it was that project that online tried to connect Israelis and people from Iran. And later on, Israelis and Palestinians and Lebanese and obviously people from all over the Middle East. So that's one of the projects that I was involved in, and this project make me travel a lot and meet a lot of people and understand maybe having a better understanding.
Dude, you've been invited by TED to do a TED Talk. What do you mean?
Yeah,
I mean, you did a TED Talk.
I'm a TED speaker.
So he's a TED speaker. You have to understand that. I mean, he's a bona fide, he's a graduate of TED.
I'm a TED speaker.
And
it's a short speak.
It's a short 20 minutes, is it? 19? 20?
15, something like that.
Yeah, whatever. I mean, they liked you enough even to call you over there, you know? I mean, let alone to give you a 15 minutes.
And again, I mean, that TED Talk opened for me a lot of doors, because after that talk, I was invited in many places, obviously in Europe, but also in the States, and to talk about peace, Iran, and all the things that we're going to talk about. So that's who I am. That's who you are.
This is who we are.
This is who we are.
The Sandbox.
Let's jump in.
Let's jump in.
I'll do the transition. We don't have yet a transition, a music transition.
We don't have an opener.
Nothing.
We don't have anything.
It's the Middle East.
It is the Middle East. Dun, 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 dun.
Okay, current affairs.
Okay, the Sandbox, show number 1, Ronny and Ilian. You know, people here in Israel used to call me Eli for many years just because they didn't know how to say Ilya properly. Ilya, that's my Russian Soviet name. Ilya is a very common name. It's like Johnny or whatever, you know. I mean, it's so common that friends of mine in the army, they were like, dude, it's just too common, Ilya. And you don't look like Ilya. You look like something more exotic, say. So they thought, I know it's not, but they said, okay, it looks like more like Italianish, you know, more Europeanish. So they added the IlYan, you know, the N at the end. So it'll sound a little bit more, you know, twist to it. Whatever. Romantic. Sandbox, Middle East, Romantic. We're here. We didn't leave just because we changed our name.
So let's start with the current affair. Obviously, let's jump into the Ukrainian, Russian crisis.
Escapade.
You started with it. I mean, obviously in Israel we have a very special position on it because, as you said before, out of 9 million Israelis, 1.5 of them are originally from Ukraine, Russia, Belarus. Yeah. And so all this community are, most of the time they're mixed together. Yeah. And they're kind of the Russian. Yeah. I mean, the Israeli, like me, the French Israeli,
they
call
look
them
at all of them as Russians.
The Russians.
Yeah, doesn't matter if they're Ukrainian, from Belarus, from
doesn't
Kazakhstan.
Matter. We don't make the difference.
None different. No difference whatsoever.
And obviously, suddenly this war happening in Ukraine creates some tension here in Israel. Also, lot of connection between the people. We had a few days ago at Abima Square, which is a big square here in Tel Aviv.
It's the National Theater in Tel Aviv in Israel.
We had a big gathering of people that came to support the people of Ukraine, to denounce the war, stuff like that. And so I was there to talk to people, to see what's happening, to ask some questions, you know. And so obviously a lot of Ukrainian flags and a lot of people from Ukraine, but also a lot of Russian flags and people from Russia. And so I asked a person...
in a different group?
No,
right
mixed together. Okay. So I stopped a man...
Doesn't happen usually.
I stopped a man and asked him, where are you from? He told me he was from Russia, and he came with his young son. Yeah. And I asked him, so why are you here? I mean, I play dumb, so... I mean, and he said, because they're like my brothers, and I'm against the war, and I support, this gathering against war, and I wanted people to see me and to know me, and I guess a lot of the people there were from Ukraine, but also from Russia, and that's the nice or the particular place that we are in Israel. Maybe that's why
it's unique, because
it's very unique.
What I hear from you is that, like, the further you go physically from either Ukraine or Russia, the more people are actually thinking, the same, that the war is shit. And that people are basically, they mix one another. They don't look at one another as Russian or Ukrainian, but as the same.
Most
so the
wars,
further you go physically, the more you tend not to think the way that being
but most wars,
portrayed over there.
Some people looking at us here in Israel, fighting with the Palestinians for so many years, and they're looking at us, at our faces, and they don't see the difference, and they don't understand what's the problem many times. And I have that conversation with many people around the world. But why are you fighting? I mean, you have such a small place. You're living there together. What's the problem? And I guess it's the same with every conflict.
It's exactly the same with Ukraine and Russia. Is the more physically and mentally you're involved, the less, or again, you see the differences inside of the story itself. Okay, but again, you sell yourself with a narrative. So again, if someone tells you from the outside about Israel and Palestinians, I actually tend to see that point more than my point. I mean, if someone from the outside asks, like, what the hell are you doing? I mean, why would you bomb one another? You live one next to another, and the people from Gaza.
You're all Arabs. What's the difference?
You all look like
you look the same.
You eat the same food, the falafel and the shawarma. And
you're from the same roots.
From the same roots. You speak almost the same languages. I mean, the Moroccans, the people from Libya, people from Iraq, Syria, Jordan, Lebanon. I mean, many of them, the Jews are. I mean, they all know Arab. They all speak Arab. Many of them, not like the kids today, but like many of them know. So so for people from the outside who ask, "What the hell are you doing?" Fighting like that, I actually tend to understand and to see that more as an objective question than to tell him, you don't understand.
Because when you're not in the details, you're like, okay, what's happening there? And that's why I guess
but then you
many
realize
people
how the details are poisoned.
So tired of what's happening here in Israel between us and they're
it's the same like with the Ukrainians, man.
These
8
guys,
years with the Ukrainians, nobody cared, nobody gave a fuck.
So here it's 50 years.
In one day, all of a sudden, Putin gets inside and people are ridiculing him for entering a peaceful country. But again, I'm not saying that he's right or wrong. We just, from our unique perspective in Israel, we have the ability to understand how is it to feel like Russia. In many ways, Israel being portrayed as Russia being portrayed today in the war against Ukraine.
Obviously, we're Russia.
Obviously, on this side, for many, unfortunately, I'm saying
we're the over-militarized country that is occupying.
We're the big bully, occupying a small place, small patch of land, whatever, of small, poor people. And I'm not saying I'm pro or against. Doesn't really matter. We're not getting there.
I mean, not today.
Yeah, I'm just saying that why is it unique position? Why do we have a unique position?
What do you say about Bennett? Bennett is the prime minister in Israel, and we can talk about him later. But we have a prime minister. His name is Bennett, and he went to Russia actually to try to break a peace agreement. How that happened? How the prime minister of such a small country
but it's simple.
Get to be
It's simple. It's the same reason why me and you decided that it'll be a unique thing, which would be also interesting to do that show in English. It's because our, again, unique position in being Russia on one hand, but also accommodating all of these refugees, a refugee country on the other. So we came from being the underdog, yet now we are with the top dog, guys.
We think we are.
i.e. United States or Russia and others. So that's why we're being asked to mitigate, and also because of the COVID, the whole injection, how do you call it, jab? Vaccination thing. So Israel considered itself to be like a savvy tech, state, country, culture. And that's why we've been portrayed as if we're super smart.
We're the startup nation.
It's like Einstein.
That's how we call ourselves.
It's like Einstein,
Israelis call themselves. We call ourselves the startup nation.
Yeah.
And
this is fucking bullshit.
He was right at a point. Today
it is a startup nation. It's a startup nation in how to prepare yourself to a war. How to make yourself as a gladiator, as a Spartan.
No, we did good thing in the 90s. In the 90s, we were actually a startup nation. And
doing what?
doing irrigation, doing
doing things,
computer things.
Doing things that when you think about it right now, it belongs to the 90s or
but irrigation was big issue at that time.
Yeah, but that's,
it changed the world.
Yeah, I'm not saying, but I just think that Israel always was and always will be, and I'm sorry to say that because that's my small opinion, and we have our political opinions, that's for sure, is that this country lost its whatever highlighted crown of whatever it had during the 70s when the kibbutz were a thing. You know, a kibbutz, it's actually...
It's a communist.
Yeah, it's actually communes that came from mainly from Russia or Soviet places at a time to build Israel in the same way of small communes taking care of small patches of land where, in total, when you look at it in 1948, that was Israel actually. Okay, so you had a kibbutz up north somewhere, you know, next to the Galilee or Hermon mountain. And you had also on the Jordanian side many kibbutzim. And that was the way, the political and also the physical way of occupying and making ideas into a fact.
But these people were the pioneers in Israel.
Yeah, I'm not saying.
And by the way, the kibbutz mentality at that time, I mean, many times...
Very Russian, again, have to remind
It's coming from the communist mentality.
Yeah.
Those kibbutz were villages, agricultural villages, where everything is shared.
Yeah.
And it's a very, very strange way for someone who has never been there, never lived in such a way. And that's part of the why I came to Israel. I was born in a kibbutz, and when I came back to Israel, I was living in a kibbutz. And it's
which one? Can you tell us?
Iftach, which is on the border of Lebanon. For a young person, and for someone coming from the West, it was an amazing time, an amazing thing to live, because the first big difference, you don't have money. There is no money.
In the kibbutz, in order to get by.
You don't have, you go to work, you come back from working, and the rest is taken care of by the kibbutz. So when you want to eat, you go to the main kitchen.
To the mess. Yeah.
And there is good food. There is 3 meals, morning, afternoon, evening. There is a pool. Your clothes are being watched by the kibbutz. If you need a car, you go to a place, you take the key, you put your name on a sheet, and you have a car. You have a small room.
It's all shared economy.
Everything is shared.
So you wake up in the morning and you go to the cows or to the field to work.
All you got to do is to do your job.
Yeah.
You do your job, and the kibbutz take care of the rest.
Yeah.
And you know, for someone coming from the big city, I lived in the neighbors of Paris.
Yeah.
It's amazing. It's amazing.
It's a totally different thing.
It's a total different thing.
So during the 70s, during the 60s, and mainly these years of Israeli wars, 67, the 6-day war being fought here in Israel between the Israelis again and the Jordanians, set new borders to Israel. For the first time in the Jewish Israeli history, we actually conquered, in a way, we pushed back the Jordanians away from the eastern side of Jerusalem and also away from to the eastern side of the Jordan River.
But we took back.
Which we took back in a way again. But yeah, again, it's the same. It's the same semantics that we are going to talk about, the Ukrainian-Russian war. So the Israel on of itself was admired and considered to be as a small, tiny hero in the Middle East that fights back all of these bad Arabs.
Because of the military achievement at that time.
Yeah, so I'm just putting it into a context that the kibbutz and all that, it was for Westerners who came because of their Jewishness or because they came here to volunteer. Many of them did from all around the world, again, many from Europe. When they saw this, especially in the time of Woodstock and all of these,
the
moments.
70s.
70s, beginning of 70s, the end of 60s, beginning of 70s, throughout the 70s, the world enjoyed coming here to Israel and to use the same facilities that you just mentioned. You know, the mess hall, when you can just, wake up if you come from abroad. So you say your mother came here, so she met your father.
She was a volunteer.
She was a volunteer.
And many people
it was so
came from all over the world to volunteer in Kibbutz. So
in the Woodstock times, I'm saying it was like so beautiful, the liberation, and people so feel free, and that the light is prevailing the darkness, and here, look at the small Israel that, prevails the big
But
armies.
it was really, it was actually good time.
You were conceived in a
kibbutz.
Very, very Woodstock, Zionist,
Totally.
very much peace and love environment.
Totally. And all Israel was like that.
At a time.
All Israel was a very socialist country, because we had no other choice.
Yeah,
but sharing, having a socialist
until
point of view.
1976 and 77, till Milton Friedman came here to Israel.
Exactly.
By because of Menachem Begin, the newly elected prime minister at the time of the right-wing party, Likud. So he called on Milton Friedman to come here and to actually jumpstart the Israeli economy from what used to be more communist, red,
socialist
Russian
country,
socialist country into more Americanized, privatized way of conducting your economy. And I know that
and there we are today.
So for the Israelis, it's quite known that it went not good at all. But here I just said it. It didn't go well, and the currency was changed twice in the same decade, and the inflation went up off the roof, or higher than the rooftop, or whatever you want to call it, and really the Americanization of Israel, which was again mostly built by Soviet mentality, Soviet people who came here. Really, Ben Gurion was from Belarus, Shimon Peres was from Belarus, Moshe Sharet and Chaim Weizmann from Belarus.
We still have the logo on the Apoel.
Yeah.
The Apoel logos. Here in Israel, we have two clans of football and basketball. We
Soccer,
have Maccabi and Apoel. And Apoel, you can see on their flag, it's
a socialist lefties, and the Maccabi are the right and more Zionist, local, Americanized, so to speak, folks here. So Israel always had this will to be more Americanized, westernized. On the other hand, it's actually being conceived and built by anything but.
Are we still a socialist country today? Do you think we're? Fuck yeah.
Yeah.
We still have a lot of social stuff.
Yeah, obviously.
The whole
think
health,
about the fact.
The whole health.
Let's look about COVID. Health. Yeah, health-wise. Okay, let's look at COVID. The COVID thing, okay, actually people for the first time could have, they took a look at their social health system in their country, and they've realized, most of the countries realized that they have none. They don't have any, social system, healthcare that actually provides healthcare to its own citizens, except Israel. So Israel, by having a system which is socialist at its core basis and the system, because of this, we were able to mass exploit the fact that you can actually jab or vaccinate all of Israeli society and also maintain the information, the big data, and also to get the results you want.
So let's get into it. So let's explain exactly what happened.
So it's a mixture of so to speak, a socialist regime, okay, with a topping of McDonald's.
Exactly.
Okay, of a McDonald's topping. Okay,
so the health system, the healthcare system that we call here in Israel, איך קוראים לזה? How you call it? The what?
The קופת חולים?
The קופות חולים, yeah.
Yeah, but that's national health.
So that's the big difference.
National healthcare.
So you have to be part of a group, a kupat cholim,
a program,
a
health program,
and you can't be outside, and all the system have all your information.
Yeah.
So when they start to roll the vaccine for the first time, obviously
we were the first ones.
Israel was
in the world.
the laboratory for the world because it was so easy to come to get the shot to the people and have all the results integrated in a computer, and you can
check, double check, triple check, quadruple check,
and sent to Pfizer for review.
Exactly.
And that's why Israel was obviously the laboratory for the vaccine. We were the first to have the first vaccine, and then the second, and then
that's
the booster.
a long answer to tell you why Bennett is mediating between Zelensky, the Ukrainian, and Putin, the Russian, because of this, us being a lot of Russian-speaking people here, folks, which are not into either Ukraine or Russia. You know, they are more of, as you said, you know, like we all Soviets. So this it's a first main reason, and the second one is because we are really close physically to do it. You know, we're not on the western side of Europe or eastern side. We're down south. From the side.
We, by the way, have a ministry
on the side.
A minister who is a Russian. Mm-hmm. Yeah, Lieberman isn't the minister of.
He's not Russian again. He's Soviet, and
Soviet.
That's again a classic. Again, that's what we said.
He's Russian.
It's a classic example to say how we look at everyone.
Minister
He's from
of
Moldova.
What?
He's actually from Moldova.
Minister of what?
Foreign Affairs.
Foreign Affairs.
Oh no, sorry.
No,
no. He's the minister of not Foreign Affairs. How do you call finance?
Finance.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Sorry, just a second. It's the how do you call him? The director of one of the videos that we're doing. He's calling. He didn't know that I'm in the middle of a show.
Tell him we're in a show.
No, he'll hear us. He'll understand by that. And okay, now we'll put it. Okay, it'll be more free show than it'll be. So yeah. So in Israel, we do have, again, the unique position, geographic, cultural, and also being looked at as if we are unique in many different ways,
so
which we are.
How many Ukrainian refugees did we take here in Israel? Because I know that the world is,
so far
is arguing about.
Yeah.
I mean, so many refugees are coming to Europe.
Yeah,
a lot
so
of them are in Poland.
The quota was about 25 to 30,000, if I'm not mistaken, if I'm not wrong. We already, I think we're already about at that number.
25.
We already hit the quota, I think.
25,000.
Yeah, if you look at that, at least 5,000 of them from Russia. From Russia, people who really did the same thing like the Ukrainians. They've understood that the sanctions on Russia will be very much, or are now very much, harsh. So they've decided to just leave to the only place they know, south to Israel.
Did the refugees that we accept in Israel are Jewish? Or
most of them that we are trying to get and accept by now so far, yes. But many of them are not. Many of them are a mixture of, say, they know someone here that it could be just a family member, it could be just a worker, it could be someone who got married to someone local here. So again, Israel is being Israel is being quite funny about it. Because on one hand, this country being built by people who were running away from wars and annihilation. And on the other hand, people who are running away from wars and annihilation right now, knocking on the door. And here you have Ayelet Shaked, the Minister of Internal Affairs. And she's like, sorry, you have to pay 20,000 shekel if you want to see your relatives inside, because we don't believe you.
So it's not a payment, you have to put a down payment
it's a ransom, dude. It's not down payment, it's ransom. That's what you call it in a mafia language. It's ransom.
So to make it, to explaining what happened in Israel with the Ukrainian refugees. So they flew from Ukraine to the airport.
Not from Ukraine, from other countries. Poland. It's important because Ukraine closed its gates on the 23rd.
Obviously, but they came from Ukraine and they arrived to Israel. And on arrival, the Ministry of Interior tell them, okay, you can't enter Israel until you put
ransom,
few thousand shekel.
Few thousand?
Here.
Few tens of thousands.
20,000 shekel.
Sometimes it went up
10,000.
No, it went up even to 50. Listen, it wasn't like.
Okay, so I mean,
it's not a law. That's what the whole
no,
point.
obviously,
it's just a decree of that
obviously,
moment. Yeah.
I'm trying to explain so people can understand how it works. So they ask them, put the money in to prove that you will living, because if you put the money in the bank,
bail. It's like a
bail.
Yeah.
It's a bail. And so when you get out, you take them. We'll give you back your money.
Yeah.
But you have to put the money if you want to enter Israel.
Yeah. And then, they changed their mind because they said it doesn't look too good. People from around the world asking, like, why does Sweden, Canada, and these countries get anyone? Doesn't matter who you are, Jewish or non-Jewish, doesn't matter. If you're running from war, running away from war, our doors are open, and all of a sudden in Israel we are doing these kunzes and schmaltzes and
So that didn't look good on the news, and so we stopped it. But still, we took 25,000 of them, which is amazing, because if we're thinking about the refugees that are coming in Israel from Sudan.
Yeah. Dude, these African guys, man.
This is not the same.
Just because they're black.
Which is amazing.
Which is amazing.
I mean, those black people coming on foot. So for those who are not familiar with the map of the world, Israel, down from Israel,
there is a whole Africa.
There is a whole country called Egypt.
No, Africa. You mean, okay.
Yeah, I mean,
continent.
Israel, Egypt, and then Sudan. So a lot of people fleeing Sudan, running away from the war happening in Sudan.
There is tens of years now.
Years of war.
Yeah, for years.
So they're walking up to the west, and the first Western country on their way is Israel. So they're crossing Egypt by foot, entering Israel from the south.
If they're lucky, because
if
many are being caught by other Bedouins, and then they've been abducted.
Then
because
being
the
raped
abduction
and beat and
the abduction by being abducted, they take the people, abduct them, the refugees, and they say, if you want to save your ass and keep on going to Israel, whatever you wanted to go, you pay. And how much you pay? $7,000, $10,000, and people pay. And that's like, you would have thought that these
people... crazy. It's crazy.
You would have thought that these people are getting like the usual, refugee path, where, you just, okay, you bombarded my house, now let me peacefully leave to other country. No, in this case, not even that. So many people, unfortunately...
And after entering Israel...
And in Yemen, the Houthis right now, in Riyadh...
Let's finish with the Sudanese.
But because we have also a big Yemenite, Jewish Yemenite community here.
But so these Sudanese entering Israel by the south, and they're crossing the border. Most of the time, most of the time, the army are the first one
to pick them up.
To pick them up, and because they don't know, and we don't have a straight policy of what are we doing with these people. It's not like with the Ukrainians that we're accepting as refugees. So most of the time, what the army does, they put them on a bus.
True.
And sending them
to Beersheba,
to Tel Aviv,
which is the first big city in the south, which is, again,
and the bus is opening their doors, putting them out, and enjoy the rest of your life.
Yeah.
And they're not and obviously it's create a huge problem, because these guys entering
illegally for the past
and nobody's recognizing them as refugees.
60,000 of them came here for the past decade through Egypt to Israel, being caught by the army and put on the buses, because Israel does have laws and decrees that it's being signed on. It's just easier for the government of Israel.
Yeah, but they're not recognized as refugees.
No, but again, yes, it's true. But the law is there. The things are there. It's just easier for Israel,
by the way,
not to recognize someone who will not complain on that fact. I mean, you give him a place, but nothing else.
By the way, how the law works is that if you're crossing one country, you're not a refugee anymore. So when they're crossing from Sudan to Egypt, by law,
Egypt is responsible.
Egypt is responsible for them. And when they're crossing from Egypt to Israel, they can't be accepted as refugees. Now look at the
Ukrainians, they do the same thing. They go to Poland.
They're crossing many countries to enter Israel.
Yeah, they go to Poland and then they go to other countries and places.
But they're refugees. But they have to pay. You have to pay. You have to give us something.
It's like to the governments, it's like inconceivable that you'll enter a country, without giving something, like what the fuck,
So we have to explain.
Yeah, whatever. Pay us.
We have to explain. We have a demographic issue. I mean, not me, but the government have a demographic issue with the Jewish population. I mean, if you're a Jewish, again, it's enter, come, knock on the door. You can come. The problem is with the people who are not Jewish, because Israel wants to be a Jewish country. It's the Jewish country. It's the country of the Jewish people. Okay, so we have 20% of the Israelis, for those who don't know, are Arabs. Some of them are Muslim.
Some of them are Christians.
Some of them are Christians. None of them are Jewish, right? So,
also on top of it, you can add the Druze.
So we have Druze. So we have people coming who came from Russia and are Christian. And anytime someone's coming to Israel and is not Jewish, is gonna have problems.
Yeah,
it's gonna be very complicated for him to get married, to have some children, to work. The moment you're Jewish, you're adding to the population, and you're adding to you're helping the demographic issue. So you're welcome. And so that's why the Sudanese are very not welcome.
It's pure, by the way, racism.
Obviously.
Can you think about Germany telling Jews, listen, sorry, Germans
this is the definition
Germans
of racism.
First. Germans are first. You can't get inside of Germany if you're not like German. And then the Jews will say, haven't we heard that somewhere before? It sounds familiar. Yet when the Israelis doing the same thing, and in Israel, there is a ministry for Arab affairs. There is Asar Linen Arabim, or Misrad Linen Arabim. Sorry, the office.
Not even a ministry.
And when you think about it, there's also a reporters in the journalism, which this is also their title. A reporter about the Arab affairs.
Yeah.
It's like, can you imagine in Germany? The office of Jewish affairs, the office for Jewish.
But when it's us doing it, it's okay.
I don't understand it.
Me too.
I don't care left, right. I used to be me and Ronny. We used to be like if we are in the army. Okay, so we used to be in the most dangerous places and events. For the past 20 years, in the past, I don't know, 20, 30 years, whatever. And we are not, it's not that we hate our country. It's not that. It's just that.
No, I love Israel.
We don't fool ourselves.
No, it's a complicated place.
With bullshit ideology.
Yeah.
There's the reasonable ideology saying this is my house, that's my place, and let's discuss about all the other things. But there are things which are not mine, which I'm not interested in, and which are being used only for the sole purpose of separating between people and not making them come together. And we know nowadays that we have more of the similar between the people than the people and the governments. The governments don't come together. It's the people who do it.
Again,
and that's why we know that when the governments tell you, Ukraine or Russia, Arabs or Jews, Israelis, or this, that somebody is pulling your leg, someone is BSing, and someone is looking to do something totally different than he's been telling you.
We've been very easy to be manipulated, and but again, we're a very young country, 70 years. And we're on our way. And it's a very complicated issue. The name says it all. It's a Jewish democratic country. How can it be Jewish and democratic? Because if you want to be a Jewish country, you can't be a democracy.
True that.
And if you want to be a democracy, you can't be a Jewish-only country. It's an inherent in the name and in the concept of Israel, but it is what it is. It is the Jewish country. There is only one country who is the Jewish country. It's not Los Angeles. It's not New York.
It's not Hollywood.
It's Israel.
It's not California.
I'm sorry. It's here. And okay, so it's our small country. We love it. We hate it. We live in it. We have kids in it, and that's ours. Sandbox.
That's the Sandbox, ladies and gentlemen. I want to thank you so much. I think that for the first time, for the first show, the Sandbox. I think it was kind of like it was interesting.
Nice introduction.
Nice introduction. Yeah, I mean, we spoke about. We told people who we are, to some detail, and then we told a little bit about why Israel is unique in a way, especially for the about if we're talking about the war between in Europe, in Eastern Europe, and other things. So Israel is quite unique. And also why we do it in English, because again, we can talk in Hebrew and we have a crowd in Hebrew that listens and is really good.
And we double check that we can't actually do it in English, because before the show we were like, okay, it's gonna be funny. I mean, we never tried. So yeah, we never tried it before.
It's true. So we did try that. Well, I really liked it. I mean, we did.
I'm amazed by my English. I want to send this to my mother, which. Not a word in English.
None. And she'll ask you like,
and tell her, look,
she'll ask you where your English is from.
And tell her, look, this is your son.
That's your son.
English
These are the evening schools you sent me to in Paris way back then. But like, okay.
But I mean, we have a lot of issues to talk about. And always, I mean, the point of this show is the angle coming from the Middle East, coming from our point of view, from current affair, obviously.
From a collective of different people with different languages and cultures that have seen the other parts of the world, that combine here in Israel, congregated here in Israel, and we have the opportunity to actually look through their perspective and know-how, and look all around the world and at the world to understand it even more. So instead of going to France in order to understand French people, we have Ronny. Instead of go to Russia or Ukraine or other places, you have me, and obviously a big band of brothers behind me and with me that also Russian speaking, from Ukraine, from Tajikistan, from Moscow, from St. Petersburg, from all of these places to teach us, show us really what's going on there. So from show to show, we'll show you in each episode. We'll talk about and show you again, and hopefully also bring forth the people diversity. Who will talk to us over the phone or whatever, and in English, and tell us the angle in Middle Eastern accent, so to speak. I don't think I had that so much Middle Eastern accent.
No, you have an accent from
half British, half New York.
You pick up an accent on watching
just TV. Yeah. What's your accent?
TV, Netflix. What's
Netflix
your
accent? Yes.
Yeah, Dallas.
So I really liked it. I mean, we did it properly, I think. The English is okay. The conversation is okay, and we made like a flow of. We started from the beginning, and now.
But have we talked about an issue? Yeah, we talked about Ukraine.
Listen,
we explained a bit of.
Yeah, we had to make it. We had to make it a prologue. We had to. We had to make some kind of
basement,
a basis.
We make the basement for the house.
For the basement, for the basis, for the house, for the pillars. We had to tell people a little bit about what it is. I mean, many of them know, but we have to. So next time we will talk more about the current
COVID-19.
COVID.
Don't start me on Canada.
Okay, so we have Canada, which
Trudeau.
But they have good news, Have you
good news?
Have you heard Felix and me and Felix talk about it? Also the Soviet Jewish. Israeli guy lives in Canada for many years. He helped them with the logistics to the folks over there, the truck drivers over there. So
but they're all COVID issue. I mean, we have a lot to talk about, obviously,
news.
Because
there's good news. There's good news. Even COVID and some good news. Okay, so we do have that. We'll talk about next. I think we should the Sandbox, the episode. We will be talking about Canada, Ukraine, Russia, and again, the effects of the economy, or more exact, the fine details behind the harsh sanctions against Russia, because there are more to there is more to it than meets the eye. People think sanctions against Russia, oh, okay, nothing bad, nothing to it. They'll suffer.
No, we're going to feel it all over the world. All over the world. I mean, not only the Middle East, but also some people will profit out of it. And by the way,
as usual, like with COVID,
Israel, think about it. The huge military industry that lives in Israel.
The huge military industrial complex.
That's us.
Yeah.
By the way, what are we good at? Hummus. Guns. And guns.
And wars. Yeah.
We're good at guns.
Yeah.
So
don't spread your hummus on the gun yet. Wait
yet.
for it. So next episode of Sandbox, we'll talk about that. I want to say a really big thank you for you, Ronny. I mean, to you for putting up this, putting up with me and putting up this.
I pushed him. I literally pushed him today to make the show. It was the first time, and he was about to do it alone and to try it. And I called him and I told him, "Let's do it together, the two of us. Let's just do it."
I'm talking about the third angle that
we can't show it. We can't show it.
There are shelves that we're erecting here. Yeah, new shelves.
But I'm more thankful for the show because I think it's a good start.
Yeah.
For a nice show.
But
let's cut it because
ladies and gentlemen, the Sandbox first show. I hope you liked it. Do write us downstairs.
Questions
down there. Questions. If you have any questions, comments. If you liked it, please press like. Please share it and subscribe on red button on YouTube.
Question for the next time.
And the bottom right corner, you have the red bell. You can press it and get alerts for the next live stream we have. We know the things are in Hebrew. I mean, the site and the rest of things. So because it's a new thing, we will work on the English version of all of these things. I'll
cut some short stuff and put on YouTube. By the way, you can hit me on Facebook, Ronny Edry Pushpin. Find me, ask me question for the next show. Anything goes. And
write us, and if you liked it, again, you can get into our site, ie2020.net. Again, it's all in Hebrew, but yet again, if you want to find the info box, it's the same. It's info@ie2020.net. Info@ie2020.net. That's our info box. I'll be more than happy and glad to hear from you. Okay, until the next time, we don't have any music, anything.
Next time we'll have music.
We'll have something.
It was nice to have you.
It was nice to have you too.
Bye.
Cheers, and guys, keep in touch. Be safe. Yeah, we'll see you around.